Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Thank you for joining the Spiritist Talk series promoted by the United States Spiritist Federation every Saturday morning at 11 a.m. Eastern Time. I am very happy to host this talk by Alex Alves, who will be leading our live with the theme Jesus in Our Daily Lives. Let's all give Alex a very warm welcome, and please allow me to introduce him before he starts his presentation. Alex Alves is a worker and the general coordinator of the PSS Plenitude Spiritist Society in Kissimmee, Florida. He has served as a board member of the Spiritist Federation of Florida and has been actively contributing to the American Spiritist movement for the past 15 years. Please take this opportunity to send your questions during the presentation using the chat window. Alex has reserved time to address your comments and questions once he concludes his presentation. And now, Alex Alves.
Bradley, everybody, good morning. Thank you so very much for this opportunity. Thank you for having me. It's such a pleasure to be part of this wonderful task and the wonderful things that you guys from the United States Spiritist Federation are doing. I'm very, very proud to be part of this work, and I appreciate very much the opportunity in bringing part of the studies and part of the knowledge that we could have developed in the few years to share with other people as well. Um, when you first see this topic, Jesus daily or Jesus in our daily lives, the very first question that comes to our mind is, but isn't he already present in our lives daily? Aren't we always talking about him, or at least reflecting on his sayings or teachings, or listening to someone that has something to say about it? Um, the very first answer that we can have, it says yes, we might have Jesus and his teachings in our lives. We might be listening to what he's saying to us in the last 2,000 years. But then we go down a little bit deeper on this question and say, well, if we were listening, are we practicing? Are we really applying these teachings and knowledges to our daily lives? And if we are not, why not? And most importantly, why should we be taking these teachings and these guidances and applying to our daily lives? If we do that, what kind of achievement are we going to reach? What kind of results are we going to get at the end of the day? So that's pretty much what we're going to be trying to talk about today, about his teachings, the Jesus teachings, how to apply to our daily lives, why we should do it. And to start this presentation, I'm going to be using part of a message that was channeled by the medium Francisco Xavier by the Spirit of Emmanuel. This message, it's called At the Time of Crisis, and it's published in the book Religião dos Espíritos, or Spiritist Religion, which is not translated into English yet, but hopefully in soon enough time is going to be. This book brings a lot of messages and a lot of reminders about our behaviors, our attitudes, the values that we should be bringing to our lives. So I decided to take this message specifically because it talks about crises and problems that we have on our lives. Well, pretty much, if we're looking at our lives daily and everything that we go through on a daily basis, we are always facing challenges, problems, and situations that require us a lot of self-balance, analysis, tranquility, calm, and good behavior in order to be facing and overcoming these challenges. So the message, I'm not going to read the entire message because it's about 2 pages, but I'm going to start with the very first phrases on that, and just a few reminds and things that I think it's very important in order to develop our study today. So the message, it starts like this: during crisis times, at the time of crisis, mute your lips and listen to the voices that speak inside yourself. So every time that we had an issue, the very first thing or the very first reaction that we have is to try to overcome. We do not think about it. We just react. And usually, and most of the time, our reaction, it's not exactly what it's supposed to be. Because when we are in a time of a crisis and we want to something solve it, usually we don't have the patience or even the balance to think about it, what is going on, to try to find the best way to deal with that specific problem. We want to just overcome and get rid of that situation which is bothering us. So when we have a situation, if we just calm down, shut our ears, shut our mouth, and we listen to the voices inside of us, we're gonna be perceiving a strictly conflict inside of us. If we do that, we will distinctly perceive the conflict. What is this conflict? It is the past that insists on staying and the present that longs for the future. It is prison and liberation, shadow and light, depth and hope. It was and it is what it was and what it should be. It's Christian posture and behavior every day on today's word. So when we have a challenge, again, our first reaction is to react to that challenge, to try to solve the problem. But most of the time, we are doing this on the wrong way. If we got someone that is teasing us, our first reaction is to try to replicate or to try to get even. It's not to put a teaches Jesus teachings on our lives and our behaviors in order to overcome that. We still have the instincts from the past inside of us. So if we calm down, if we just relax and tranquil, and if we think about it, we're gonna start to not just to react, but we're gonna be able to deal with that situation. What that's the dealing that we need to develop. What is Christ waiting from us? What is He's waiting for us? It's not that we do not suffer long hesitations during stormy times. If you are really looking for a righteous path, let us listen to Christ and His word as an infallible compass will guide us in the right direction. So, for example, during this text, during this message, Emmanuel brings a few comparison about what the word says and what the Christ's values are. So the word says, destroy your opponents. And Christ says, love your enemies. So when we are facing a challenge that we are dealing with a difficult situation on the work, for example, the very first reaction that we have is to try to strangle someone or even to overcome that person or get the situation solved. But that's not what Christ is teaching and asking, and most importantly, expecting from us. He is expecting that we deal with the situation and we face that brother or that person as our brother, someone that is going through his own challenges and difficulties at the time. And we must deal with that situation as Jesus was expecting us, loving our enemy. The word says, deny those who trouble you. And Jesus says, whoever requires you to take 1,000 steps, walking with him 2,000. So the word says, or the word values of the word says, hate those who hate you. And Christ asks us, pray for those who persecute and slander you. These are the challenges that we needed to overcome. Leave this reaction behavior that we have and embrace these new values that Christ is asking for us. Once we do that, and once we decide and we started to deal with these situations and these new values, we're going to be adding a totally different concept and vision to our own life. We're facing right now a big moment in our lives. So It's about time that we started to see the values that we used to have and the values that we need to have. It's that transition that we must go and overcome in order to leave the world's values behind and embrace what Christ is expecting to us. So, why should we do that? Why is the reason behind of these teachings? Actually, there's a few things that we needed to take a look and understand what's going on and why we should be doing that. The very first thing is we are in a transition moment, and we are moving away from a word of a trial and atonement to a word of a regeneration, which is going to be seen a little bit more in details a few slides ahead. But if we want to do that, we're going to start to acquire the values of this new word. What are the values of this new word? We're going to see these on a couple of slides once again. But before we get there, it's important to understand that we have the opportunity, using our free will in every challenge and difficulties that we face, to use the values that we have ahead of us. It's our own choice, it's our own opportunity, it's our own way to how to see how we're going to be developing ourselves spiritually from now on. So every time that we face a difficulty or a challenge, I have the word's value, something that we've been living with this for the last, I don't know, 1,000 incarnations behind in the past. And I have the new values which Christ is expecting from us, and even God is expecting to us. So every time that we face something that is harsh or hard to us, I can just react as I used to do, or I can think in a different way and approach that with a new value. If I'm looking to stay and if I'm looking to be taking part in this transition world, which way should I be doing? Should I be keeping my own values from the past? Or should I be upping up in myself to the new values that Christ is came in and taught us? That's one thing that I would like to leave as a message to think about it as of now. The other thing, when we go to the Sermon of the Mount, especially on the chapters 5, 6, and 7 on the book of Matthew, on the chapter 6, Jesus brings us the concept and idea of the Lord's Prayer. And when we say the Lord's Prayer, you say, "Thy kingdom come, thy will be done." Are we doing the things exactly as God is expecting us to do? Are we trying to replicate here the values and the laws that He has for us on His spiritual word? Or are we just adapting ourselves at the values of the word, the values that we had been carrying from the past? That's one thing to think about it. The other thing is, please forgive our trespasses as we forgive those who have trespasses against us. Are we doing that? Or are we just expecting the forgiveness from God without forgiving our enemies or the persons who that did something wrong against us? These are the values that we have to think about it. We have a new trend, we have a new way, we have a new kind of a word coming up ahead of us. Are we preparing ourselves to do that? So when we look into this, so this is just the ideas on the behaviors that we should be changing and what we could be doing in our daily lives and bringing Christ's values to our daily lives. The other thing that I would like to bring it to our attention as a reflection for ourselves. Where are the concepts for this? Where are these ideas coming from? Where can we find on the Spiritist doctrine, for example, or in the books, the ideas that will support and give us the strength to fight against our own imperfections and look for a better behavior? Because it's very important to understand when we know something and we know why we're doing something, we do that same thing much better with much more enthusiasm and much more commitment. When, for example, just a brief history over here from the past, going down the memory lane. I used to hate when my mom said, "Why do I have to do that? Because I'm saying so." So I was doing that because I was obligated. But when she was explaining to me, well, I expect you to do that because this will be the result. With this result, we're going to be reaching that thing over there. It makes much more sense to me. And I would, following her guidances and orientation, much happier and a much more determined way. So when we understand something, we're going to apply ourselves towards that thing with much more commitment, that's what we need today. So in order to support that commitment and to understand why we should be going those through these changes, I would like to bring a few concepts that we can find on the Spiritist doctrine. The very first one, it's a phrase which is in the book by Allan Kardec. What is Spiritism? And the prologue. It says, Spiritism is simultaneously a science of observation and a philosophical doctrine. As a practical science, it consists in the relations that we can be established with the spirit. As a philosophy, it entails all the moral consequences that result from such relations. What Christ is expecting from us is to change and reevaluate our moral values, the values that we have with the world today, comparing to the moral values that he brought to us. I would say that one of our biggest challenges in our evolution is to leave behind the values of the world and embrace the values of Christ, because most of the times they are absolutely conflicting. The values of the world are totally conflicting with the values of the Christ. So if we understand that we are going through a transition, that we needed to acquire a much better moral and more elevated moral level, if we embrace these new behaviors and new attitudes that he's expecting from us, we're going to be acquiring the moral values. It's important to say that when we understand the concepts and the tenets of the Spiritist doctrine, we understand our multiple lives and existences as a way of evolvement. So every life that we have, it's another step towards perfection, which is going to take a long, long time, but every life is an opportunity for it. If I understand this concept, I can take advantage of all opportunities that I have, all the faces and all the challenges that I might face, as in a way to apply the Christ's values on my decisions, behavior, words, reactions, and this kind of things. So that's the very first thing that I'd like to bring. This concept of the moral consequences once we understand the concepts of Spiritism. The second thing that I'd like to bring is it's on the Spiritist book on the part 3 when you're talking about the divine or the natural law. Question 621 of the Spiritist book says, "Where is the law of God written?" And the answer is in the conscience. So we cannot allege a knowledge or that we are not aware, that I didn't know. We have God's laws in our conscience. So, and then Kardec keeps going. Since humans carries God's law in their conscience, why does it have to be revealed to them? Because we have forgotten and disregarded, but God has waited for them to remember. So how do we remember this? What was the way that God found to remember us about his law? And then question 625 of the Spiritist book says, what is the most perfect standard that God has offered a humankind as a guide and model? And the answer is Jesus. So we all know and we all have God's laws in our consciences. for some reason, maybe because of the choices that we've made in the past, we forgot those laws, and we needed to be remembered about that. What is the way that God's finding to do it? Sending us from time to time some masters, just like a lot of the others religious and spiritual leaders that we have. But the biggest one, the most pure one, the one that had the biggest concepts of his laws that he sent it to us was Jesus. So that's why we say Jesus is our role model. The values that he taught us, it was the most important and all that we needed in order to go back to our spiritual evolvement and be able to reach perfection as is expected from us. The third aspect that I would like to bring as a concept to our study today. Question 132 on the Spiritist book. What is the purpose of the Spirit incarnation? And the answer is God imposes incarnation for the purpose of leading spirits to perfection. For some is an expiation, for others a mission. And then the answer goes on. But the point is, God imposes. And I love this verb. It's not God asks, recommends, indicates, prescribe, indicates, or anything. God imposes incarnation for the purpose of leading his spirits to perfection. Why is that? Because perfection is progress. Progress, it's another natural law that we must reach and fulfill in a certain time of our lives. And actually, right now, as I spoke a few minutes ago, we're going through this process, which is called the process of the transition. We're living on a world of trials and atonements towards a world of regeneration. So to be part of this transition, we must have the values of this new world. We must embrace these new teachings or the reminders that Jesus brought to us in order to be part of this transition. And if we go through this transition, we're going to give a huge step towards our perfection. The incarnations that we have, the faces, the problems and the challenges that we face over here are ways in order that we can apply our free will on those situations in order to acquire the moral values that Jesus has taught us. That's what we need to do, and that's what he's expecting us to do. So, in order to be able to candidate ourselves to the word of regeneration, we gotta have the values of this new word. Or what are the values of this word? Beyond this definition can be found in the Gospel according to Spiritism on the chapter 3. In My Father's House are many mentions, and the topic regeneration, regenerating words. Beyond doubt, man still finds himself subjected to the laws that rule matter. We still have matters involving our spirit. Humanity still experiences your sensations and desires, but is liberated from the ungoverned passions to which you are slaves, freed from pride, which silences the heart, envy, which tortures, and hate, which suffocates. On all sides, the word love is written. Perfect equity resides over all social relationships. Everyone recognizes God and tries to travel in his direction by fulfilling his laws. In other words, try to travel in his direction by fulfilling his laws. We can define this behaving and acting, facing the situations in our lives exactly as Jesus taught us or guided us on his moral values. The difference is that I was talking about in the beginning of the text, when a few situations and challenges that we face. What says the word and what says Christ? This is the conflict that we needed to overcome. But once again, once we understand why we're changing our behavior and we apply this on a daily basis in our lives, we're going to be able to fulfill that desire from God. We're going to be able to reach, or not the perfection, but we're going to reach the growth and the evolvement that will allow us to move forward. Another thing which I think it's important to mention, especially at this point of this study, this talk, there is a few concepts on society and anthropology, especially, which is it's the analysis of a new concept or a new idea or a new value when once it's introduced in society. A new concept, a new idea, it may take a long time until it reaches what they call the point of no return, or a point of a turning point. That's when that value is going to be accepted by the most of the people on that society, or a new value is introduced. It might take a long time, but once it reaches this point of no return, you're going to acquire this new value. That new value is going to be part of our lives. If we keep trying, and if we keep dedicating and committing ourselves to these challenges, to these transformations, will come a point where we're going to reach the non-return. What I mean with that, the new values will come to stay, and we will embrace ourselves. These new values will dominate our behaviors and our thoughts. And we will no longer be able to look back and go back to the old values that we have. So if we keep insisting, if we keep developing and dedicating ourselves, we're going to be changing. And once we change and these new values take over and are inside of us, our minds and our hearts, we will no longer be able to do the things that we used to do in the past. And we don't have to go through very deep transformations and analysis. If you look in our own lives, if we look at what we used to do 10, 20 years ago, the values that we had, the attitudes and behaviors that we would like, that we used to have, and we look at today, we already changed it. And a lot of things that we used to do 10, 20 years ago, we cannot even imagine that we would be doing today, because we evolve it and the new values are already inside of us. So the old behavior, the old me, it's already in the past. And we embrace these new values. So once we dedicate ourselves, once we get those teachings, those moral laws or moral teachings that Jesus gave it to us, and we embrace in our daily lives, once again, we'll be able to dedicate ourselves and towards the transformation that we needed to go. And then you can ask, oh, okay, that's fine, that's very good, that's magical, it's very, very nice, but where are the lessons? Where can I find this? How can I follow these guidances? Where can I study? Where can I go a little bit deeper and try to understand and be more committed to my transition and to my evolvement? Well, there's quite a few places where we can go. I would say that in the very first place, and that's Kardec. It's defined by Kardec. It says the gospel can be divided into 5 parts: the events in the life of Christ, the miracles, the prophecies, the words taken by the church on which they based their dogmas, and the moral teachings. The very first 4 have been object of a lot of controversies, but the last, however, has remained constantly inviolated. Which one's this? The moral teachings. So all the lessons that we need, if we extract it from the New Testament, only the moral values and the moral teachings, this is exactly what we need. And this is defined by Kardec in the Gospel according to Spiritism and the preface objectives of this work. So if we just focus not on the miracles are just part of what Jesus has done for a certain lot of reasons. But if we focus on the moral teachings and the moral values that he left to us, that's where we needed to do. Why is that? Because that will guide our behavior. Our behavior is dictated by what we think. What we think are dictated by our values. If our values are based on moral, pure values by Christ, our thinking will gonna be perfect and pure, and our behavior and our attitude will be perfect and pure. The only thing that we needed to do, it's just a way to put it, an easy way to put it. The only thing that we need to do is to embrace those values. Oh, but okay, fine, wonderful, I do understand, but where are those moral values? The best behavior guide that we can find, the Sermon of the Mount, which is contained in the Gospel of Matthew, the chapters 5 to 7. This sermon can be considered as the Magna Carta, or the Carta Magna of nonviolence, and a model of a coexistence within the standards that Christ teaches and expects. For man, for all the humankind in particular, this moral code of conduct it constitutes a rule of procedures that covers all circumstances of private and public life. It's the basic principle of all social relations. The moral values that Christ has taught us, it's not just for our private lives, it's for every aspect of our lives: professional, personal, the friendship, relationships, everything that we do, even commercial transactions that we do. If we have the moral values, if we have the moral concept, we wouldn't even need contracts. Why do we need contracts? Because we don't trust each other. Because if we trust each other and we had enough moral, if our moral were strong enough, we wouldn't need contracts. Our word would be enough. They will come where contracts will no longer be necessary, because whatever I say, it's exactly what I'm going to be doing, because my word, it's worth much more than 1,000. My spoken word, it's much more valuable than anything that might be written on a contract. So it's very important that's why I was saying that these teachings are important, or are mandatory for our daily lives, on everything that we do, and not just on our behaviors or relationship with other people. Jesus' thoughts, Jesus' moral lives should be part of our daily lives, daily activities, on every aspect of our lives. The moral sublimity of these teachings, of these words, is recognized by even other people. Mahatma Gandhi once said that all the books, all the religious books in the world has been burned down, but only the Sermon of the Mount has been preserved. Nothing has been lost, because over there it's the guidance, the guidance for the perfect behavior on everything that we might expect from each one of us. So once we have those lessons, once we have and we know where to find it, how to understand it, Christ alluded to these situations of these moral lessons on several occasions, and it is the reason why much of what he said remained unintelligible or has been wrongly interpreted. Spiritism offers the key by which all can be easily explained. What I mean with that? Again, I was saying in the beginning of our study a few phrases and the values of the word and the values of Christ. The word says, destroy the opponents. And Christ says, love your enemies. When we bring the idea and the concepts of Spiritism, God as our creator, Jesus as our role model, the reincarnation as a way of progress and evolvement, the multitude of the planets and the worlds inhabits, the relationship between the spiritual world and the material world, and the way that we interact. When you put everything all together, it makes a lot of sense to forgive my enemy, because I know that my life in the future, if I do not forgive, if I do not practice, will be bringing consequences for the future. So when we bring this spiritism aspect to these moral values, everything makes sense. Because if I just think only one incarnation, why should I forgive you? Why shouldn't I try to get the most of my life and taking all the pleasures and all the richness that I can get if I were just going to be living once and there is no consequences for the future? But once we understand that our actions today will bring consequences to the future, it makes sense as why I should be doing it, following these values. Because my consequences, if I apply, will be good ones. I will be evolving. I will be progressing. I will be fulfilling God's laws. So when we include that aspect, it makes all the sense. There's a phrase that says Christ is the door, Kardec is the key. Nobody goes to the Father except by me. So Christ said that no one goes to the Father except it goes through me. How do we go through Christ? With Kardec, because Kardec has the key to open up and demystify all of his teachings and all of his laws as well. In order to start to wrap up our study today and leave a few messages that we can reflect upon later on, we saw where are the lessons. The very next question is how to get there. How do we apply that? How do we evolve? How do we train and practice in ourselves to adapt these new values? And the answer, it's really simple. Just follow the models proposed by Jesus. It is simple. We complicated things. That's because we are still have the words or the words values and the values of the past is still way too strong inside of us. We need to start to open up our hearts for these new values, understanding the consequences that we're going to be achieving and if we decide to move behaviors and move concepts and ideas. If we decided to embrace this and apply this in our daily lives, we're going to be opening up ourselves to fulfill God's laws, to make sure that we're going to be evolving spiritually, that we're going to be fulfilling also the law of progress, and then we're going to be able to keep moving forward in the scale of this the enlightened spirits. And once we incorporate and we achieve those values for good, we will no longer be accepting whatever we did in the past. It's a matter of choice. It's a matter of decision. It's a matter that we take care and control of our own actions and lives. Whatever we decided to do now, that's whatever we're going to be collecting as a consequence and a premium or it's a reward for the future. If we decided to stay as it is or as we have been in the last incarnations, we're still going to have some time. We're going to still need some time to be evolving. If we decided to move our behaviors, applying Jesus' values as of now on our daily lives, the consequences that we're going to be collecting are much more lighter, and we're going to be able to evolve ourselves a lot easier as well. But following the models proposed by Jesus, which are they? I'm just bringing here three main topics. And again, if you go to the gospel according to Spiritism, there is a lot of chapters over there talking about, for example, or bringing the ideas and the concepts on the Sermon of the Mount. We're gonna be seeing chapter by chapter descriptions, ideas, concepts, and values. But I just decided to bring you three, which I think are the ones that it could be more helpful to us. The very first one is the chapter and the idea and the concept that says, love your enemies. That we should be fighting against revenge, hate, and duel. As we were saying here on the test. destroy the opponents? And the answer is love your enemies. Why should I be revenging against my brother? Why should I be developing the hate against my brother? Usually, these situations that we face, or people that come to attitudes and things that will make us feel bad, it's most likely because these people, they also don't know. They don't know. They don't do that on purpose. They do that by ignorance. The duel, we talk about the duel, but the duel, we don't have the duels anymore. We don't use pistols to be shooting out people on an open field, or we don't care the swords that we can fight into with each other and everything. Yeah, we might not carry those weapons, but we carry our word and our ideas. We duel nowadays with the ideas and concepts. We can see this all around the world. The the duel that we have on values, ideas, political spectrums, and this kind of things. We are not trying to reach common ground. We are trying to see who is going to win on this duel. That's another way that we should be avoiding this situation, loving your enemies. The other aspect, and also in the gospel according to Spiritism, we can find a lot of information about that, is in the chapter Be Perfect, where we're going to see the passage about the good man and the good spiritist. The passage on the good man, it says, the good person, the truly good person, is one who complies with the laws of justice, love, and charity in their highest degree of purity. And if you go down on that passage, on that message, you're going to see over there everything that we can do that is expected from someone which is truly committed to this transformation. We're going to be doing or using those behaviors, those guidances, as a way to work our inner transformation, for example. The good spiritists, we have a phrase and we have a definition of spiritism that says the true spiritists can be recognized by their moral transformation and by the efforts they employ in order to dominate their bad instincts. It's not saying the good spiritists are the perfect spiritists, but are the ones who apply their efforts in order to dominate their bad instincts. So if we are committed to doing, if we're committed to this transformation, we are going to be a good man. We are going to be representing the good spiritists. Also, another chapter that we can find in the Gospel according to Spiritism, you cannot serve God and mammon. When we keep ourselves, for example, from avarice, when we practice the detachment from the earthly possessions, when we understand the true property, we most of the time we are fighting because we want to keep the earthly possessions that we have, the goods, the money, the material things that we've been blessed during this incarnation. But if we reflect deeply with it, all of these belongings, all of these possessions, they are not ours. We don't take them. They are God's land in order to use these resources to fulfill the rules and the compromises that we have for this life. The resources that we have, the material, the financial things that we have available to us, it's from God in order that we can use it to achieve our goals on this incarnation. They are not ours. Because when we pass it away, these goods, these possessions, this money, we will stay behind. What is the true property? The true property are the moral values which we're going to be taking with us. What is truly ours is something that no one can take it away from us. Our ideas, our concepts, our moral richness. This is what is ours. This is what we can take with us. So, once again, once we decided to move and apply Jesus' teachings on our lives, we're going to be able to overcome these conflicts that we have with the uh, about between the values of the word and the values of Christ. So once again, when someone says destroy the opponents, Christ says love your enemies. And here we are refuting, we are fighting against revenge. So the word says hold fast to possession. And Christ asks, to the one who prays to you, give the cloak too. So we are detaching from the material or earthly possessions. The word says, the word says and expects from us, censor as you wish. And Christ says, do not condemn. Here we are loving our enemies as well. The word is expecting or saying to us, hate those who hate you. And Christ is saying to us, pray for those who persecute and slander you. We are avoiding the duels here. We are keeping away from these challenges. The word says, accumulate gold and power so that you may be feared. And Jesus says, probably this night they will ask you for your soul and what you have put up for who it will be. Here we are understanding and checking the value of the true property. What is the true property? So, once again, if you really seek a righteous path, let us listen to Christ and His word as an infallible compass will guide us in the right direction. So, with these words, I would like to leave you guys with this message today saying, if we decided to work in our inner transformation and embrace these moral values that Christ has taught us on our daily lives, for certainly at the end of our journey on this earth, we're going to be living this life much better than when we came in. Thank you so very much for your time and attention during this morning, during this talk. And if anyone has any questions or anything, let's see how can we try to answer in the best way as possible.
Thank you so very much, Alex, for the insights and wonderful reflections you provided us today. Please stay with us for the Q&A session that will start shortly after just a few announcements. Register today with this 13th Spiritist Federation of Florida and join us for an inspiring event where we explore the relevance of Jesus in our modern world. This in-person gathering will be held this year in Apopka, Florida on April 6th and 7th. English interpretation will be provided. Again, the podcast-like series, Psychology and Spirituality, A Bridge to a Better Life, based on the works by Joanna Angeles. A new episode appears every Friday at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. The Psychology and Spirituality weekly talks offer a safe space to confront, compare, correlate, and expand spirituality concepts from a psychological lens, bringing insights, actionable tips, and real world advice to help you lead a better life. Subscribe to the USSF YouTube channel to receive notifications of new episodes. The USSF has launched a new Spiritist app, Be My Hope, which is available now for download either on the App Store or Google Play. This brand new app offers uplifting content in a collection of videos, daily messages, and audio materials. Download it today. On the screen, please note there is a QR code. If you want to help the USSF produce more publications and promote Spiritism to everyone, scan the QR code on screen for your donation. Now, let's start addressing the comments or questions from the audience. There is still time to send yours. From the United States Spiritist Federation, does it take practice to find those voices inside us?
The most important thing is and our practice is going to be a lot easier if we can connect ourselves with our divinity. And how do we do that? Through prayer. if we keep ourselves connected through prayer with good thoughts, these ideas, these voices, what kind of voices are we going to be hearing inside of us? If you are connected with the good spirits, we're going to be hearing good voices and good guidances. If we keep ourselves connected with the wrong spirits, we're going to be listening and getting the wrong message. So most important, more important than the practice, it's to whom we are connected. Because if I'm connected with good spirits, my practice will going to be a lot easier. I'm going to be much more stimulated. I'm going to be much more guided towards the good things. So in order to establish this practice, which is important, of course, but the most important is to be connected with the good spirits.
Very good. Thank you. Okay, from the TVCEI International Spiritist Council, how can we keep our free will focused on Jesus' values with all the noise in our daily lives?
Keep the eye on the prize. What is the prize? Progression, evolvement, a better word for ourselves and everything. If I keep the eye on the prize, let's say, put it this way, it makes a lot easier. Again, what I was saying during the presentation, if we really understand the whys we are doing that, it makes a lot easier to be able to achieve in those behavior changes that we must go through. If I do understand that I'm changing my behaviors and my values because I needed to fulfill God's laws, that God expect me to be working towards my progress, that I listen to my conscience is where I have God's laws inside, then I will be able to forgive or forget those noises that comes in our daily lives.
Very helpful. Thank you. And for our next question from the U.S. Spiritist Federation, are those with dementia or other limitations lost if they can't recall Jesus' values?
No, of course not, because Jesus or even God, they do not leave behind any of their sons. And actually, there's a passage in the New Testament saying about the lost sheep. There's not a single sheep which is left behind because somebody got forgotten or anything like that. Our brothers and sisters, which might be facing some kind of mental challenges during this incarnation, most likely they are going to be protected also in order to be just fulfilling that passage in that moment for some reason that we might not understand right now, but it will never be forgotten because this condition is not permanent. It's temporary for some reason, maybe a challenge, maybe a consequence from the past, maybe an imbalance it caused during this life, maybe as a commitment and maybe as a family karma to everyone to be dealing around that person, that spirit. But once this experience is gone, he or she will be able to regain her conscience and keep it moving on. But no one is going to be forgotten, and this person is not going to be left behind.
Very good. Thank you for that. And from the United States Spiritist Federation, can you remind us what are miracles according to Spiritism?
Well, miracles are just a nice word to explain something that science has no way to explain how it happened a certain time ago. What I wanted to see, what do I mean with that? If you look, for example, Jesus walking over the waters, oh, that was a miracle. Or Jesus curing the cripple or something. No, that was a miracle. Okay, miracle was the word that was founded to say, well, someone did something that was out of the ordinary or out of this world. There is no explanation for that. On that time, and even today, science may not have a perfect explanation for what happened. But we cannot understand, we cannot forget also that Jesus could never, ever go against God's law. If Jesus did what he did, it's because he knew how to do it, and there is a way to do it. So let's just put it this way, for example. How Jesus walked through over the water, for example. Well, he might levitate in himself. He has the power and he has the control of his own body and of the fluids around him, that he might be just levitating. He might just make the water behind his feet strong enough to support his weight, manipulating the fluids around him. We cannot forget that Jesus was the one who created this planet, and he knew and he knows all the components, the material components and the spiritual components of the world. So everything that he did was just a manipulation and a way to work with these fluids and make and provoke the changes that he provoked. So science, there's no way that a scientist still can prove or explain exactly what happened. So the word miracle is used to explain something that science cannot explain. But when you go to the Spiritist doctrine, the concepts and idea and the explanations, you're going to see all the miracles from Jesus. It was perfectly explainable by the elements.
Very helpful explanations. Thank you, Alex. And we have another question from the United States Spiritist Federation. It's a long journey from hate to love. Shouldn't we try to move first from hate to indifference?
Indifference, it's lack of love. Maybe we should be moving from hate to understanding, because indifference, it brings the idea and the conception that you don't care about the person, or you don't care what's going on. But we do care. Once we decided to incorporate these new values, we care about our brothers and sisters. So maybe if we move from hate to understanding, we might not be applying the full love that Jesus is expecting from us, but at least we do understand what's going on, and we are willing to help and extend our arms and our hands towards someone which is in need. Indifference is still a lack of love. And I don't think that God is expecting that from us.
Understanding is a very good thing. Thank you very, very much, Alex. And many thanks to everyone who watched today's talk live and those who have been following our weekly Spiritist Talk series. Don't miss our next Saturday, February 24th at 11 a.m. Eastern Time, when Daniel Ortiz will be speaking about reincarnation, connecting ourselves to our past, present, and future. Alex, before we close the live, would you say a prayer, please?
Oh, yes. Thank you so very much for this. Let's take this moment to raise our thoughts to the heavens, asking to our spiritual benefactors to be with us at this moment. But once we raise our thoughts, we say, Dear Lord, our Heavenly Father, thank you so very much for this morning, for this study, for everything that we just learned or reviewed. Because in the bottom of our hearts and the bottom of our minds, we know your laws and we know what is expected from us. But from time to time, we need someone to remind. Thank you so very much for the reminder that we just received today. May your good spirits be with us all the time, giving us the strength that we needed to fight against our own imperfections, so we can be tomorrow a much better person than we were yesterday. And we could be able to fulfill your desires and your laws, fulfill the behaviors that you're expecting from us, so we can be somehow contributing to the installation of your kingdom on this earth. And so be it. So be it.